So I always like to start with the obvious question, tacked with a provocative question. And number one is, who are you? What do you do? And the provocative part is, why should we listen to you?
Okay. Hi, I'm Elise Krentzel. Who am I? I am a provocateur at heart whose mission in life is to transform others through the written word and through a sense of authenticity. What do? I'm a ghostwriter, a book coach, a best-selling author. I have online courses, and I bring strategic value to my clients by being able to assess what they can't see. In other words, like an archaeologist, I dig out the hidden gems, bring them to the light, hold them up and say, hey, did you know this about your life? Did you know you could go in this direction? Have you thought about this type of strategy? It all relates to their product output, which with me is going to be either a book or a white paper or a series of communiques.
Okay. Nice.
And the last question?
Why should we listen to you?
Because I'm a badass and I'm fun to be around.
I like that answer. And I like that you said provocateur, because it was like, this is a provocative question, but it's a fun start. And, we can't take ourselves too seriously. So you're kind of like a lexical, archaeological
muse.
Autobiographer.
I'm a muse to many people.
There you go. I like that word.
And to some, I'm amusing.
Amuse. Okay. Just depends how you put the stress on it. Okay, that's interesting.
If anyone is looking for a ghostwriter, they can contact me at elisekrenzel.com. And if anyone is looking to write and wants a course that they can download at their leisure, all at once, with more than 50 pages, course instruction, numerous videos, plus Zoom sessions with me for only $99, they can get my course, which is writelikearebel.com.
Excellent. So I'm interested in that. So I'm going to ask a question. What is a specific area you serve?
Books. So that course is anyone who is looking to create storytelling, whether it's a book, whether it's ad copy, whether it's web copy, because it shows you how to build interest, characters, themes, plot, and tie it all together. And there are many exercises. It gives you all the 5 senses, how to use words,
Nice. So integrate storytelling into whatever kind of writing you want to do.
Whatever kind of form, yes.
Okay, so what I'd like to start out with also too is to frame the time and your time. So do you have a certain ballpark of time which you can't go past? I'm pretty open, which is why I give it the headroom that I do. 2 hours and 17 minutes, because it's unusual, and I've never had anybody go that long. So it's obviously enough time for pretty much everybody.
Let's just see where it goes. I would say about an hour and 10 minutes, we could wrap it up.
Okay.
An hour and 12 minutes to be exact.
An hour and 12. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So then the other thing is I want to give you the opportunity to input some of the format of the interview. And I like to do this because it adds some fun, but it also has people do something maybe that they would prefer to do. So here are my alternatives so far. A spontaneous conversation, fixed questions, some of which I do want to ask, random questions, a list of over 100 questions, of which some are mine and many are mined from the internet, both, that is random and fixed, or a format I have not yet thought of.
I would like to suggest a format that's not on that list, which is spontaneous and random.
I love that. That's sort of my favorite approach to it also, spontaneous and random. So I do want to ask you this, though. What questions should we be asking ourselves about transforming organizational culture and leadership?
Okay, that's a 2-part question. Let me start with the latter, which is leadership. The questions we should be asking ourselves as leaders or leaders in becoming is, how authentic are we? Are we being true to ourselves? That's the main question. That has so many variables. We don't have to go into all of those, but that's the main concern, because if you are a cut and paste cartoon leader, reading books, mimicking whoever is your hero or someone you want to emulate without putting your personality into it, and not just personality, but your value system. So there's two parts to that. Authenticity is like two sides of a hand. You have your palm and you have the outside. It's still one hand, kind of yin and yang.
Mhm.
Therefore, how you act within is going to be received by people. And that brings to the former part of the question. How do you be a leader to others? How do you manage others? Well, authenticity. And then again, there's two parts to that. Well, there's always two or more parts to everything, right? So you just stop me if I'm going down a rabbit hole. To be authentic with a team that you're leading, not only do you need to be authentic with yourself, but if you have values which don't jive, for example, with your shareholders, you may have to rethink if that's the right company.
Right.
If you have values that are translatable to a team, let's just say this. Let's say you believe in safety of your workers, or you believe in shareholding profits with your workers. You believe in the dignity of work. And these are values that you not only want to espouse, but live in your company. Or as they have in America, I'm not sure if they have this in other countries of the world, B corporations, the letter B. Those corporations adhere to a value system in the entire supply chain, not just giving lip service. Oh, we're organic. Oh, sustainable, this and that. Really, your sustainable fishing is killing the food chain. It's not sustainable. There's no such thing as sustainable fishing. And therefore, you either create your own company or you align yourself with those values that are inherent to you, because naturally that will attract other people to your cause, to that belief system, to that company, organization.
Right. Okay. Great. I love that. And if your leader sucks, the authenticity, the values you're talking about, if your leader is a hypocrite, if your leader mistreats people, if your leader is authentic and leads by example and therefore makes people proud to be there and feel safe, psychologically safe, that's going to be reflected, as they say, shit rolls downhill, to put it in those terms. So what about that? Is there anything specific about organizational culture? What kind of questions we might want to be asking ourselves?
Yes, we might want to look and evaluate the leadership at top and do due diligence. So, for example, if you are looking for a job, don't just look for a job, evaluate and analyze the leadership at top. If it's a public company, read their statements and delve into it. Also, look at news sources that are unbiased in this fake news world. And I am not paid by anybody as a former journalist. Well, I'm still a journalist, but I mean formerly doing that full time. I recommend then you look at something called Ground News. It's a subscription-based publication, and they are giving you all sides of the argument. So then you can see a 360. So if they take an article from, I don't know, some right-wing newspaper or magazine, or they will publish that, but they will publish it alongside left-leaning. So do that. And it's sort of like the equivalent to Snopes. Ground news for news. Do every type of evaluation. Speak to headhunters. Find out what headhunters say about that corporation. But look, if it's private, if it's small, you'll have less of a chance to get that information, but you could still get it. You could still get it. Go on LinkedIn, connect with people, ask questions. That's the main thing.
So I'm going to expand out from there, because I think it's interesting. You took the perspective of being an incipient employee, looking at them as a company you might want to work for. What about as the leader, and you've already addressed that, but also as somebody internally responsible for or concerned with the culture? So now you're not working for them, you are the person who is setting or creating the culture in the organization. What sort of questions do you think those people should be asking?
Well, if you're setting the culture in an organization, are you resetting it? Is it a new company, or are you advising? Are you a consultant? I don't quite understand that question.
Okay, let me slice that up a little more. Transforming organizational culture it's implicit in that we're talking about transformation. Now, ideally, what I would like to work with the most is new companies so that we can start off with a good foundation. Like, don't start off broken and then have to fix it because you've got a lot of resistance and other things and dogma to overcome. So it could be either one. It could be the founder of a company or a brand new company and creating that culture from the ground up, which I think is the more ideal, or this culture is screwed and so many are sort of industrial revolution, command and control. A lot of companies are broken, big companies and small companies. So address either both or whichever one you think is more significant for you.
Okay, let's address that which is today and which is broken. And you use the terminology command and control. And there's one other command in there using computer speak that I'd like to add to that. Command, control, and delete.
Okay.
In today's culture, yes, most of it is broken because it is based on faulty foundations. Those faulty foundations are what you mentioned earlier, Tim, the Industrial Revolution. I'm sorry, we have been in a digital revolution for the last 50 years. Knock, 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 50 years, 50, half a century. So when people start saying, oh, AI, excuse me, AI has been around. AI is the basis of computer technology. In any case, in order to create a new world, a new foundation, by necessity, you need to deconstruct, destroy, get rid of, build anew, not on top of the same foundation, create a new foundation, which is what I think the world is going through right now. So yes, there's a lot of upheaval, but upheaval is good because change is good. And change is the only constant in this world. So going back to leadership, how do you change? You change from within. Well, if you yourself are built on faulty foundations, meaning you have faulty belief systems, you have belief systems that are no longer working for you. You have belief systems that are either too idealistic or approaches that don't work. What is that telling you? Are you going to keep driving into a wall or will you go around it?
Yeah, I get you for sure.
What are you going to do?
I like that. Okay, so let's do a fun one. If you were a flavor of ice cream, how would you convince someone to try you?
Okay, well, it didn't ask what flavor. It asked if I was a flavor.
Correct.
Well, all ice cream has flavor, right? So in this case, I don't think I would have to convince anyone. Since this question did not specify what flavor, it only said flavor. So then I could be any flavor in an ice cream shop, and anyone coming in wants ice cream. Therefore, I don't have to convince them of anything. All I have to do is be there.
Okay. From the perspective too, it's just sort of like, well, if they like the flavor that I am, they will choose me. If they don't, they will choose another flavor, right? So it's like, who you resonate with, and especially in your position and what I'm striving to do, even with my students, because I still teach English to maintain my visa and stuff. One of the things I like, I have an online app that I use. I want to make my only source of income because I have full autonomy.
Right.
With extremely rare exception, I have blocked 2 people. I was not the right flavor for them, but that was rare out of the many. And I have that autonomy. So it's like, I want to be able to choose the people I work with because I have very specific values, and many I think I share with you, that I don't want to work for somebody who wants to exploit a lot of things, whether that's people, resources, the environment, treating people like crap, whatever it is. It's like, I choose not to work with them, and I'm happy to have them choose not to work with me. So that goes to the flavor thing, I think.
It also goes to leadership.
Yes, absolutely. I think of leadership in a couple of different ways. And one of the things when people go, but I don't lead anybody, it's like, well, you either lead yourself, your family, a small group, a community group, whatever it is. You're leading at least one person, unless you are the follower and somebody in your life makes those decisions for you. You lead at least one person.
Totally. And when you're leading yourself, it has a ripple effect. So by definition, you are leading others, even if it's indirect.
Yeah, that's true. The implicit leadership. So if you're a train wreck in your life and the way you go through it, it's going to make chaos for others.
Correct.
I'm very excited about this question. I've hardly asked anybody, but I love the results. This one is, I'm creating a game for teaching leaders how to transform their organizational culture. What question, activity, or game mechanics is a must-have?
Okay. I'm going to answer it using the example of an activity.
Okay.
Okay. So the activity is the following, and it's not really even original. This, I give credit to an author who published a book in the 70s, I believe, called The Six Hat Method. British, I forget his name, a sociologist. So I would do this 6 hat method. And this activity is as follows. Each person in the group gets a different color hat. And these colored hats are related to thinking mechanisms. So for example, let's say orange is the mathematical thinker. Yellow is the emotional thinker. Green is the communications. White could be the analyst. You catch my drift. Everybody has a different way of processing information. So you get all these people in the room. They wear these different color hats. Let's say 8 people to represent the various mechanisms within the organization and the different ways of thinking about those mechanisms. So if it's production, you are probably going to get somebody who is more or less engineering type. If it's sales, you're probably going to get somebody who's more or less that emotional communication type. And what you do is you ask them a question. How would you solve this problem? Everybody gives their answer, but then you exchange hats.
Okay.
So if you are a financial person who is looking at quantitative data through, analytics and finances, and now you are wearing the hat of the sociologist, you must answer in a qualitative manner. So that's the activity I would use.
Nice. I like that. I was actually going to ask you when you were talking through it, it was like, so do people self-identify for the hat that they naturally would wear? And then before I was able to ask you, you answered the question. So I really love that. It's definitely would make the activity more engaging because it also has a certain component of empathy. That is that you have to be thinking in a mindset or a frame that isn't normally your own.
Correct.
Is probably going to bring up, especially if the facilitator is doing it well, a lot of fun too, because they're very likely to start impersonating the person in the group that they know who is that style of person in a friendly and playful way. That could be both hilarious and really probably quite enlightening.
Enlightening and confrontational, perhaps.
Oh, that too. Yeah. Which is totally okay. That's one of the things that has really come out to me over the years of teaching. I didn't need Carol Dweck to tell me what growth mindset was because I'm a teacher. And as far as I'm concerned, a teacher worth their salt sees it as obvious. It isn't the most, it's sort of like, of course, it's the students who actually try who do the best, not ones who are naturally gifted but couldn't be bothered, who then have that fixed mindset and are less likely to actually try. It's like, well, I'm smart, and if I have to work hard at it, it's just not worth it. They're trying to maintain their reputation. So I really like, what was the last thing you said?
The last thing I said was that the activity could be confrontational.
Thank you. That brings me back to where I wanted to go. So then that led Carol Dweck, then Mindset, and Angela Duckworth and Grit, led also to Amy Edmondson, because though I didn't have a word for psychological safety then, for me, it's always been that way, especially in the Japanese culture, since you know it quite well. It's like the hazakashi, shameful for not being good at something. It's like, hold on. Let's think about this. If you are great at English, if you are great at what you're here to have me teach you, then there wouldn't be a class, or you would be the one teaching it and I'd be the student.
No, but that is from an American mindset. That's not from a Japanese mindset.
Yeah, I'm Canadian, but that's true. But I have a lot of students who would share that, or, even if it's sort of the the Japanese virtue signaling of I'm shy. And not all Japanese people are shy because they're like every other human being on earth. There's a spectrum of personalities.
Right.
What I really promoted in my class is like, it doesn't matter whether you make a mistake. I will celebrate you trying and failing because you tried. And that is the first step. That's the growth mindset. So all of these things came out. And one of the things that people have woeful misinterpretation of psychological safety is the words right out of Amy Edmondson's mouth is, if you have psychological safety, it is the single top identifier of top performing teams, but understand that that would include conflict. That is, telling the boss they're wrong, somebody admitting they don't know what to do. They're the boss, but they don't know. So with that psychological safety comes the freedom to disagree or say, you know what, that's not really. So it actually increases the probability of conflict, but also the performance of the team.
Right. And which leads to something else. Let's spontaneously go down this path, which is societal norms.
Mm-hmm.
Let's redefine leadership. If we're defining leadership as leading from within, from me, authentically, well, then I'm going to ditch some societal norms because whether it was historical, geographical, ethnic, religious, institutional, political, familial, that told me this is right and this is wrong. You have to behave this way and not that way. This is acceptable and this is not acceptable. Well, sorry, you're not going to decide for me, the individual, what is and what isn't. Granted, I'm not going to go off the rails and start shooting people. No, there's ethics and morals.
Yeah.
Right? There's ethics and morals, and there's integrity. So I'm looking at it more from an eternal point of view, whether you are following or read the great leaders, whether it is Gandhi or Buddha or Moses or Christ or, I don't know, Rumi, whoever it could be, universal principles applied to individuals. So how you express that individuality is your own. And that leads to Edmondson's correct conclusion. Yes, it will bring up areas that are challenging. I have been this way my whole life. I have not ever worked for anyone. I have had skirmishes or issues with people. And in my younger days, it really bothered me. And I was always trying to course correct and to pivot and to adapt. And now, no, this is the beauty of getting a little bit older. No, you don't like it? I'm not here to convince you. Great. Okay, to each his own. Be on your merry way. I grant you permission not to like me.
Yes, I hear you with that one because that it's always been a challenge, but for me, it has mostly been in most situations, the vast majority of situations, I don't really care what other people think or whether they like me. When I have a position, I have a position. It's usually based on something other than just random opinion. And, it's usually informed. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that when their opinion is either not informed or it's just, if it's different, it's totally okay to be different. And that's why psychological safety is so good. And it brings out group genius in the form of diversity. When people say, well, in your experience, sure, but here's my experience. And then bringing that in and making almost without exception. And the science and the numbers on it are very impressive that the more diverse a group is, the better they perform, and that you need a foundation of psychological safety, the most of that diversity. And I'm speaking about authentic diversity, not just the definition you see that they virtue signal on social media. Diversity, whatever it happens to be.
It's very funny how modern science, in my opinion, reinvents the wheel or rediscovers the wheel in a different way, in a slightly different way. When you mention diversity, well, let's just take the idea of the Middle Ages and the royal families throughout Europe. It's incestuous. They were marrying their cousins and their brothers and their sisters, right? That's not diverse. That's not diverse. Whereas if you take, I don't know, let's say the tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes, they were diverse. They were from all areas of the Levant, what is now Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Iraq.
So from all over the Middle East, effectively then.
All over. And they were different colors, They had different habits and cultural, norms. That's diverse. That's diverse. We know that also in the animal kingdom. Look at people who raise show dogs and certain animals. Guess what? Those animals don't live as long. They have problems.
Yeah, it's the reflection of what you were talking about before with the royal families and that. It's like the inbreeding is clearly not a good idea. A lack of diversity. And if you go into the evolutionary side of that, diversity, and people really also tend to misunderstand evolution. They think, oh, something changes, so the animals change to adapt to it. It's like, no, they don't. The ones that don't fit the new environment die. And because there was genetic diversity, the ones that survive are now expressed. It's elimination, not adaptation, really. It's the population adapts, not the individual.
Therefore, those corporations and those leaders, I won't name names, who think that a lack of diversity is the way to go, they are the dinosaurs. Goodbye.
Yes. I agree. You got to look at the results of the thing. And yes, diversity, good. And like I said, not because it's politically correct, but just purely because it actually works and the evidence is there. If you ignore the evidence, if you ignore the coming meteor or comet, you're going to go the way of the dinosaurs because you decided you were the biggest, the baddest, and nothing could ever touch you. Too big to fail.
Well, that's it. And that is what we see now all over. And it's also, we can use the example of dying empires. So, yeah.
Right. That reminds me of something. I'm a big fan of Ray Dalio, although he sometimes decides he knows about neuroscience, and sometimes he's right, and sometimes he should probably not talk about it because he doesn't know what he's talking about. He is clearly an expert on economics and money. He talks a lot about his latest book, I think, was Dealing with the New World Order or something like that. And he's talking as basically a macroeconomist of the most successful hedge fund in the world. He's now retired, but he's still really present and active on social media. And you're talking about empires, and he used computer models and his expertise and his company, which is Bridgewater Associates, and looked at all this stuff. And he shows all these different cycles, the rise and fall of empires, their economics, what made them powerful and everything else. And a perfect example is, according to what he says, and it shouldn't be surprising, the US is now on the downslide of their empire as the global reserve currency. And his projection is the likely replacement will be the Chinese renminbi. It's interesting because nobody stays on top forever. It is a cycle. I'm listening to a book. I think it's actually called The Rise and Fall of Empires, and talking about, environmental changes, whether it's economic changes, technological changes. Every empire, however they got there, if they aren't adaptive or don't have that diversity, it's going to happen. Nobody's going to stay on top forever. And having humility and adaptability is a really good thing, especially in our modern times.
This leads me back to an ethnic group of people which are diverse, who have survived, at least according, two ethnic groups, actually. The Chinese, because there are hundreds of ethnic groups within China. India, again, hundreds of ethnic groups, languages, cultures, and also the Jewish people. They never had their own homeland until 50, 60 years ago, but they lived all over the world and adapted to every single culture where they were. And for thousands of years, they were forced into certain industries, were not allowed to participate in the Christian culture wherever they were, or were persecuted for it. However, they developed their mind. They had to think, how are we going to survive? So they used their brain power. Now, that is not to say that every single last Jewish person is the smartest one on the planet. No. If you look at the fact that it's 0.2% of the world population, which is crazy. There's not more than 15 million Jewish people on the planet. That's not even a city. But their brain power far exceeds their numbers. And that's what happens in diversity. That's why the Chinese culture is still around, Indian culture is still around. And for that matter, Japanese culture still around.
I like what you said regarding Jewish culture, and I've listened to some interesting things and learned some interesting things from friends. Actually, my last or second last interviewee is Jewish.
So am I.
I guessed that from our conversation. And he's actually also an author. One of the cultural values that was so strong in Jewish tradition was intellectual training. That is, there's a reason that we hear Jewish last names associated with lawyers or certain businesses and certain industries, because there was always sort of a lot of value. You were talking about the necessity to adapt, that it was like, if you do well at your studies in something that has value, you can succeed and therefore survive and thrive. And that's something that I've heard is very entrenched in the culture. Education is a big thing. Okay, I think it's time for a spin. What's the difference between someone who's great in your role versus someone who's outstanding?
Someone who is great has a technical knowledge. They have also a string of successes using that knowledge. So, for example, a formulaic writer, somebody like Stephen King, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
He stamps out books. He has a formula. They are usually all bestsellers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe somebody thinks he's outstanding, but for me, the definition of outstanding is somebody who takes a topic and infuses that topic with their authentic take on the topic. Now, the Japanese are brilliant at that, even though it may not be individual. It is more of a group fantastic results because they reverse engineer. They reverse engineer and bring something new out of something already existed.
Right.
Infusing that newness with, in this example, their group thing. So my field, I think someone like, she wrote many books, the New York Times bestselling author, Nickel and Dimed was one of them. She's she's outstanding because she has studied sociology. She has studied economics, and the way she writes her books is a refreshing, provocative look at our current culture and how those two areas intersect. And it's not dry, and she uses anecdotes, and it's just brilliant.
So great is technically proficient and applies it consistently. Does that capture the essence okay?
Yes.
Okay, so outstanding is those who infuse, and I didn't get any further.
Their originality into some area they have perfected, which is non-formulaic. And I found her name, Naomi Klein, and she's Canadian.
Well, of course she's Canadian. I knew that just because she was brilliant.
Here are some of the names of her books, which are fantastic. The Shock Doctrine, Doppelganger, Capitalism versus the Climate, No is Not Enough. This last one is the most recent, is called On, the Burning Case for a Green New Deal.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm always on the lookout, not only for good authors. I mostly read stuff that is around or listen for education, but that doesn't mean I don't do that diversely, because I believe in diversity in education, the T-shaped learning as well as the T-shaped person, broad in a general sense with some deep understanding of a few areas. We can do another random one or another fixed one. What would you like?
Random.
I knew you were going to say that. That was a good one, though. I liked the last one. I thought that was an intriguing question. If you were left on a desert island with either your worst enemy or no one, which would you choose and why?
Oh, definitely my worst enemy, because A, I want to be with another human being. B, it will give me ample opportunities to turn that enemy into my best friend.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of inclined to go in the same direction. Nobody, it's not what we're meant to do. And have you seen, it actually brings to mind a movie I haven't thought of in many years. It was called Enemy Mine. It's a science fiction.
Okay.
I quite liked it, and I'm a big science fiction fan. But I remember specifically and clearly, my brother and I used to go to movies together. He's 2.5 years older than me. And he says, I just want to see a movie where we don't really have to think. I think it's Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr., if I recall. And they are One is an alien, Louis Gossett Jr., and Dennis Quaid is a human. And these are two like warring races from different worlds. And essentially they're stranded on this hostile planet together and turn from, the most enthusiastic killer and hater of the other party, the other race, the closest friends, pretty much what you said. So it's that's what made it come up. And I haven't even thought about that movie in probably 20 years, but I thought it's a good movie. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the tip.
Yeah, sure. I am a massive and passionate seeker of book recommendations, and for that matter, idea recommendations. I just always want to find new and cool things. So,
well, I suggest you read my memoir.
There you go. What's your memoir called?
It's called Under My Skin: Drama, Trauma, and Rock and Roll.
There you go. Interesting. Tell us a little bit about that, because it's a good enough title. As a writer, that's what you should be doing. What's sort of the broad strokes that brought that title out?
The broad strokes. Okay, this takes place from when I was age 5 to 20, where I was allowed as a child to explore my artistic side, but not my emotional side. So I became a music journalist in high school. Think Almost Famous.
I was thinking Almost Famous when you said that, actually.
On steroids.
Okay.
On steroids. And basically, I left home when I was 17, toured with Kiss in Japan, and then wound up, really never going home.
Right. That is an interesting life. So it's got to be an interesting read. Do you have it on Audible? I'm mostly an audio guy. No. That's okay. We'll figure that out. That's interesting. And I mean, that's it. Real stories from real people. Not everybody has a fascinating story, but I think even an ordinary story well told can be really engaging. And for me, storytelling, especially as it relates to whether it's business or teaching, it's sort of in a sense, my worst enemy, because I'm never satisfied. I'm not very good at it. I've read lots of books at it. I've tried, but I find the storytelling aspect of communication, that is injecting story into making something more intriguing as a lesson, whether it's technical or not, is still probably the skill I'm least satisfied with as a writer. And I've done a lot of writing, none professionally really, but in my own entrepreneurship, when I started writing seriously on LinkedIn, in 1 year, I wrote 161 articles. And then the next year, I decided to start my YouTube channel in January of 2022. And for the next 258 days, I sometimes wrote and sometimes spontaneously one YouTube video about real information about psychology, self-improvement, learning, mindset, whatever it was that I did it on for 258 days in a row before somebody convinced me I should do once a week. But the whole point of doing that was to sort of make the point to establish that I knew what I was talking about being able to do challenging things that still had value.
Did you get many viewers?
No.
Okay, well, then you proved your point about storytelling.
Right.
I just wanted to add that book number 2 in my trilogy series is coming out in May this year. It's called A Rogue Entrepreneur and How She Did It Around the World.
There you go. That goes good with Kiss and especially Gene Simmons' fame. I'm having fun. I'm liking where we're going with all these questions. What are the key skills that leaders need to create a thriving organizational culture?
Well, they need a couple of skills. Well, one, they definitely need empathy. 2, they need strategic value. They need to bring something to the table that nobody else has, which can move the needle and move the people in the organization towards the vision. You can be a visionary CEO, but you may not have COO skills. That doesn't help. You need to also have the skill of choosing the right people that are going to promote the values. I know when I was younger, I had a digital publishing company back in the 90s, which produced CD-ROMs of travel guides using GPS. This is pre-internet, but I was not a manager. I'm a visionary. So I grew a company from 4 to 75 people, but that was not my talent. So I could choose some of the people that worked for me, the marketing, the distribution, all the outward facing. But the programmers and the data people and the production people, I didn't really have a clue.
Right.
Plus the management of everything. Oh, I hated it. So you need certain skills.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a definition of leadership. Do you know that you don't or do want to have a large corporation? Maybe your corporation is like mine right now, where I have colleagues, I have external vendors who I work with, but nobody's on staff.
Right.
So I manage those people around the world.
Right. Yeah.
There's all different ways of being a leader now.
Right. For sure. And I like what you said there, especially about, it reminds me of one of the people I met, a New Yorker that I met when COVID started. I joined, it was a business mastermind, a business brain trust kind of group. One of the members, her name is Tasha Urich, and I saw her quite a bit on LinkedIn. She did a book on self-awareness. And what you were talking about is like, I know certain things that I'm not especially good at, and I'm not really interested in being good at. I would rather outsource that. As far as the storytelling aspect, I would love somebody to take for me that aspect, because it's not that I couldn't maybe get good at it, but I would rather, triple down on my strengths and focus on what I know I'm already good at and making that better, and then outsourcing. So I like what you said, the self-awareness that as a leader, you have to know what you're good at and what you are passionate about doing, and delegate or outsource the rest.
Yes. It all comes back down to self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I brought up the book, actually, Tasha Urich's, is she talks about self-awareness is like the core premise of her book. And not enough leaders have that, I'm afraid. Who do you know who could benefit from being interviewed by me on these topics?
His name is, and he is the president of he's an expert in supply chain management, and he is an entrepreneur that owns 6 or more companies.
Excellent. Thank you.
Also an author, and I have ghostwritten his first book.
Nice.
I'm working on the second now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. What questions or frustrations do you have about transforming organizational culture and leadership?
Well, none, because I'm choosing the people I want to work with.
Right.
And my only frustration would be, and I can deal with that easily, is whether it's time differences, time zones, or language capacity. If I work with my team in India or in the Netherlands, there are nuances. Even though everyone speaks English, we don't always communicate exactly the same way.
Yes.
So, and even 2 people within another culture are not communicating the same way. So herding the cats is sometimes challenging.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. Okay. Next one. How could I make this interview better?
Make it shorter, be more clear what the mission is of the interview. So that's how I would make it better.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Well,
that's also why the introduction part, the self-introduction, I guess what I should say is, tell us what you do, who you are, why we should listen to, and then follow up with the question, can you tell us more about your business or what you do?
A little bit.
How you serve people. So I like that. I appreciate that. How can I make this interview better for our audience?
Know who your audience is, and then address them and feed them what they're looking for.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure. Any final words you want to give to the audience or say before we close this out?
Well, if you're a leader or becoming a leader, then always keep true to your values. And if you are in flux and unsure of your next steps, go within, reflect, take some quiet time for your next big move.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. I'm intrigued about your book.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much, Elise. It was also for me. Take care.